What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the morning recording. I'm here with you, Big J. Starting out my morning. Got my bowl of weed, got some coffee. Just want to hang out with you guys, tell you a little bit about what I'm going to do with my day, talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the world. All here by myself today, here just by myself. Everybody else has left to work. The responsible working folk of the house are all gone. Yesterday, you guys heard me on here with a couple of people, Ryan, and you guys heard a female voice. That's Nikki. That's my girlfriend. Ryan's actually Nikki's brother. Him and his girlfriend stay here with us. Yada, yada, yada. Just to let you guys know about a couple of the characters you guys might hear during the morning recording every day. That way you're not just wondering who in the hell they are. So how you guys all doing this morning, man? Like, I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. I know it's early. Well, it's noon on the East Coast, 9 o'clock a.m. here on the West Coast. Give you guys a little bit of a hint about my geographic location there. Got my coffee here. Just some straight up black coffee. My coffee's blacker than Hillary Clinton's soul. I love this shit. Just no sugar. Sometimes the sugar, when you're a kid, it's weird. You think everything with sugar tastes great. More sugar, the better. That's probably why that's why you guys call me, or I call myself Big J. But wouldn't probably call myself Big J if it wasn't for all the sugar and pizza I had as a kid. But when you get older, it's weird how your taste buds, they really do change. And I just like my coffee black now. I mean, I haven't even always drank coffee. Didn't always agree with me as I've gotten a little bit older. Just a single cup of black coffee in the morning usually do me pretty good. I don't know about you guys. Have you guys heard about this stuff called VI Poo? I just saw this commercial yesterday. I guess you spray it in your toilet when you take a shit, and it literally makes your shit not stink. It's kind of a crazy premise. There's a lot of people in the history of this world that thought their shit didn't stink, and now there's a product that can make it to where literally people can buy the right to have their shit not stink, which is kind of fucking crazy to me. You're a human. You have to process the food you eat, and that shit stinks. So get over it. If you're covering up the smell of your own shit, it means you're probably not comfortable with yourself all the way as a true, just organic human being. Take a smell of your fucking armpits. They stink sometimes too when you do some hard work. It's natural. It's okay. What's crazy to me about it is that sooner or later there's going to be people who literally forget that their shit stinks. They're going to grow up with this stuff. They're going to be able to afford it, every month, without question. People not living paycheck to paycheck, they'll just have it for their whole lives. And when they go somewhere else and somebody who can't afford it takes a shit and they smell their shit, it's going to smell worse than ever because they haven't smelt any shit for years. It's going to literally, it sounds fucking stupid like I'm talking about this, but it's another way to create like a class divide, like a stupid little way to create a class divide. So pretty soon a socioeconomic marker that somebody will be able to identify that maybe you're not doing as well as they are is that your shit stinks. And this is like a euphemism. It's a joke that's been going around for ages that some people just think their shit don't stink and that they're better than other people. And it's literally going to come into a reality that some people are going to think that their shit doesn't stink. You can spray whatever chemicals you want on it. At the core, your shit stinks. And probably so does your humanity. We're not just mindless automatons here. We are fucking human beings. We're allowed to feel. We're allowed to take a shit. We're allowed to get sweaty and let our fucking armpit stink. We're allowed to run our fucking hands through our sweaty ass forehead into our hair when we play a game of pickup basketball. Our feet are allowed to fucking express themselves, for God's sakes. This is how your body handles with all of the things that go on inside of you, with all the processes. It expels them in these ways, and we all do it. And I think that accepting ourselves as human beings rather than hiding the way that we're human beings is a better way to get back in touch with our humanity and to start treating people like we care about each other again. And it's allowed. Another thing, you're allowed to have an emotional range in life. You don't have to take a fucking Xanax every time you have a fucking feeling about that time that guy broke your heart back in fucking high school and you still fucking feel something about it. Maybe if you just ever let yourself feel it all the way, maybe you'd fucking get past it, Anyways, so tomorrow, you guys know what tomorrow is, don't you? It's the day that people who literally know that their vote doesn't fucking matter go to vote and pretend and guide themselves down to the polling stations believing, forcing themselves to believe that it does matter when they know that there's a bunch of people who have been set in each state in the Electoral College who just do whatever the fuck they want to do anyways. And that the polls are all electronic and anything digital can be manipulated. Any program, any software, they can manipulate that shit. So I don't trust it. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't trusted in an election probably since I've been old enough to understand how the political system, how the economical system, and things like that work. So this one's like the worst ever. The thing about it is that it's so weird that there's so much effort being put forth in the media more than ever to make each candidate seem unreliable and sketchy. Both sides driving fear into people for the other candidate. And then on the surface, Donald Trump gives me slightly less of a Holocausty, gonna put me in a concentration camp feeling than Hillary. And she talks about having a list of deplorables and a bucket of deplorables. And that basically is another way of like how rich people say we're worthless eaters or just containers in those horrible fucking statements that come from the land of eugenics and those thought processes that, calling people the masses instead of calling people, that kind of shit. But yeah, so Donald Trump gives me a slightly less Holocausty feeling than Hillary. And then all of these, a couple weeks ago, the Project Action Veritas people came out with those videos exposing the Democratic National Committee, their efforts in planting people at Trump rallies and creating a plan to make everybody who is voting for the other side seem like they're extremists and nuts and conspiracy theorists and rednecks and idiots and all of those things, those brainwashing tactics they were doing. They were having people go to Donald Trump Trump's rallies and dress up as Donald Duck and hold signs saying Donald ducks his taxes, and they were having people start arguments with Trump supporters, planting people in there and creating dissonance, and then making sure to get the attention of the camera crews and the media that are there and stuff. But so all that stuff came out, and then like all the WikiLeaks have been coming out, and you can listen to people like what's his name, H.A. Goodman. He breaks down all the WikiLeaks as they come out and stuff like that. And when you listen to him, he makes a really good case. Like he sounds like he's right on the point. Like them coming out with this information is great. That people are changing their view on Hillary, and they're not going to make me vote for her anymore because she's a criminal, and we shouldn't have a criminal in the White House and things like that. But it really makes me question with our country's intelligence ability to collect intelligence and to organize intelligence and to literally have giant fucking facilities where all we do is collect information digitally and process it and organize it and put everything in a row in a column, that somehow people who run this country would let all of this sensitive information just slip through this politician's fingers. A politician who, most politicians I believe are are bought out usually in the pockets of some rich businessman behind the scenes. But especially her when her husband had so much scandal and corruption in his term in the White House that they would just, the powers that be would just allow all of this sensitive information to be uncontained in the hands of this politician. It makes me feel like it's just another layer in the story that they're guiding us with as people here, to guide our opinions and to make sure that we don't think out of a certain track that they're guiding us on. It makes me feel like maybe they want to make these candidates seem so sketchy and divide people so much, because see, before you had a giant group of Trump supporters versus a giant group of Hillary supporters, and pretty much like within their groups they were pretty rock solid. They all believed in who they believed in. Within the last month, there was last months, I guess, there was a few weeks of Donald Trump really getting smashed and creating division within his ranks. And then the last week and a half or so of Hillary, of all these things coming out of the DNC, planning all those things, and then coming back to Hillary, and then these WikiLeaks developments, the child fucking pedophilia stuff that she may and her friends and confidants may be linked with. It really has created division within the main groups of supporters, and so that division, it goes hand in hand with fear and with like fight or flight mechanisms, making people think as a giant group, like a herd, rather than thinking like what we truly are as critical thinking, loving beings. So I feel like if things get so divisive that it'll cause the dominoes to fall down, so to speak, it'll cause some sort of event like maybe like riots, martial law of some sort, and then that's when the people who have the influence and who have the assets, not just the paper money because it's fiat currency, it's basically worthless, but the people who have the real assets, people who have the real power to do things, they are the ones that can cultivate a replacement for the people, because the people feel so sketchy from these candidates that we don't feel that they could lead the country. That's when the people who have the means to do so can offer a replacement that looks good, but is most likely maybe even fucking scarier than the thought of these two candidates. And it's a show, man. If you listen on either side, but especially on Trump's side, if you listen to his conversations he had with reporters and with investigative journalists back on the Oprah show and things like that back in the late 70s and in the 80s and the 90s, the way he spoke, like, he had to build relationships with the minorities, with these minority groups that now they're saying that he's racist and things like that. Like, that's part of the game. Like, that's part of the character they built up for him. Like, he's an exaggeration of his TV character from his reality show years back. That's not the core of that man. That's a character that's been even further embellished, and you're reacting emotionally off of it, and people are scared that he's going to send their family members back to countries where they originally moved from, and that he's really going to build a giant wall down there and stuff like that. And maybe the wall might become a reality. Maybe not. I mean, I know it sounds extreme, but just taking away the personalities of people, and taking away just all of how we're so deep into this fucking bucket of shit of politics right now. If you just think about just wanting to secure a country, like saying that we need to secure the borders of our country in order to figure our shit out, like, generally, it's not a bad idea. Like, I know that we're a country that's different, that we were built on immigrants and things like that, and I know, but to pretend like your ancestors didn't fucking rape and murder and lead a bunch of Native Americans down the Trail of Tears and took this country by fucking storm and put a McDonald's on every fucking corner and a gas station on every other corner. If you want to forget about all that and just pretend like that didn't happen and say that, that everyone should have equal opportunity here in America and they should be able to enter as they want. What about the fucking Indians that were here? What about, I'm sorry, I excuse myself, the Native Americans, the people who truly did take care of this land, and they took care of it. They didn't wreck it like we did. But if you want to, pretend like we just walked into this land like just do and there was just nothing here, and we just built a house and there was never anything fucking horrible happening in order to gain supremacy of this land. If you want to forget that all that happened, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the thought of being uncomfortable with protecting your country's borders. But again, him saying those things, that's just a part of the game that they're playing us with. Like, these people that are the figureheads don't truly run the country anyways. No candidate that's ever come around, that's ever had a real chance since JFK, has never questioned the centralized bank that prints our currency and sells it to us, loans it to us actually with interest. And no one since JFK has ever even tried to dismantle that system. They've all been too scared to. They've all been in the pockets of some rich businessman who will fucking have a hitman probably take him out, if they tried. So, call me a nut or conspiracy theorist, whatever you want. Like, the honest truth is that if you look at the way our economic system is built, you'll look at how we're suppressed, like, in the most, we're suppressed the most. At the basis for our suppression is the economic system. And if the candidates aren't willing to dismantle the centralized bank that is enslaving us as a people, then they're not really for you. That's all it fucking comes down to, because the economic system is what grinds us down. It's what takes 99% of our time. You want to spend your time with your family, but you can't because you have to work 45 hours, 50 hours a fucking week. And then your spouse also has to. So your kids go to fucking school, then they have to come home and be by themselves or be raised by a nanny if you're lucky enough to be able to afford a nanny. Most people aren't. But so the money is loaned to us, the base plus the interest, and then the form in which we pay them back is the same currency. So if you're only ever issued the base amount, how are you supposed to pay back the base plus the interest when your only form of payment is the paper currency itself? It's a mathematical trap. It's the root of our enslavement, and neither of these candidates are willing to change that or even acknowledge it. And on some fronts, like, Trump makes me feel less like I'll end up in a fucking work camp somewhere here in the States, but it's disgusting to hear him say that he wants to increase the military, our spending on the military even more. And then he wants to, continue to occupy lots of other countries and things like that. And that he's not afraid to fucking bomb places and things like that. Like, I'm not cool with that. I'm not cool with murder, no matter how it's packaged. And I think that we could all get along on this earth with a lot less murder and a lot less organized war and war tactics and taking things over by those tactics than we currently do. You want to talk about spreading democracy across the world, basically fucking taking over countries and implementing our own political system. We're not even a democracy ourselves, you fucking idiots. You've been brainwashed. We're not a democracy. Not a democracy. We're a republic. We always have been. Well, until now, less and less of our fucking rights are, worthwhile nowadays anyways. Our rights don't mean shit anymore. Basically, just a shell of the republic we were. But we can't spread democracy. You can't spread something that is not what it is. That's not what we are at our core. So how can we exude that externally if that's not what we are at our core? It's another way you've been brainwashed. So hearing Trump talk about, the military, I know that he's probably pandering to the classic conservative crowd with that, but it kind of makes me feel disgusted a little bit, because we don't need more military. We need to spend less on military. Oh, one thing he says that's good though, and here's me just getting sucked into the game, but it is that he's gonna get rid of the Common Core math, the math that's literally teaching children nothing about real mathematics. It just helps them complete tasks in their own little compartmentalized jobs in the world. Him saying that he wants to get rid of that, that's great, but he's going to need money to put into the educational system to do that. And if he's going to increase military spending, it's me just pandering to the game here, but if he was going to increase military spending, or if he's going to focus just as much on the military as all of the people before him, then he's not going to have the money to change the education system. The education system has been tanking on purpose. It's for a fucking agenda, like how I throw the F word right in the middle of agenda. It's for that agenda, man. They just want us to be consumers. They don't want us to be the manufacturers anymore. They want us to be the literal consumers, the cows that eat the grass off of the fucking field and shit it out. That's what they want us to be over here. So they don't want us to have a true education, a true broad, wide spectrum education. They want us to be just intelligent enough to do your job and not ask any questions and not have the ability to change the world. If we truly educated our children, and even my generation or the generations before me, we would already have change. They would have figured out that the system's bullshit, that our economic system creates nothing but debt, and that's it. Alexander Hamilton was the first one. He was, fuck him, man. He was on the inside. He wanted to centralize. He was the first one. Him and Thomas Jefferson, who believed in democracy, pure democracy, which I don't necessarily agree with that, but they were opposed on that. Alexander Hamilton wanted the centralized bank. He understood that if the people were in debt, then the people would give the government more ability to do what they need to do to get the country out of debt. So basically, putting the people in debt gives the federal government more power, and the people aren't as directly aware of it or don't have the ability to stop that power once it gets rolling because they asked for the help. That's like, we'll just talk about pure democracy a little bit. Like, whenever, a lot of times in the history of humanity, when people are given the ability to vote purely on things like social service programs and things like that, like a lot of times people will vote like they feel like they're entitled to something, like from the government, so they'll vote, or not from the government, just in general in the world, so they'll vote to put programs in place that will give them benefits like Social Security, and things like that. Social Security, and there's other examples out there as well, like welfare and things like that. What they don't understand is that when they create these programs and they give the government the authority to carry out these programs in order to create these benefits, that the only place where the government has to extract the resources for these benefits is from the people who voted it in the first place. The government cannot give you anything they have not already taken from you. That's just the way it works. The government just doesn't pull shit out of a magician's hat. They don't just make shit appear out of thin air. They have to take it from somewhere, and they're taking it straight from your ass. Your fucking taxes, your income taxes. The income is a profit made from a corporation. You trade your labor straight across for that paper cash. It's not income. It's a fair transaction already. So for them to tax profits, income, like as a profit, like that's wrong in itself. And there's no law out there that states that you have to pay federal income tax. And our ancestors and our forefathers knew that that was bullshit. And, we just all go along and pay our taxes and go along with the program and don't question anything and don't understand that the economic system is holding us down and it's the root of the problem. And if we got rid of the bankers controlling us, that we would be a lot better off. And the kids aren't taught a true education, so they can't figure that out. And we can't change anything. So Trump, even if he was going to do what he said he was going to do with the education system, he's not going to truly do what's truly right, which is to give people a full broad spectrum education. And he's not going to create enough room in the budget because he's not going to decrease spending on the military. And then he's not going to help us get out of debt because he's not going to eliminate the Federal Reserve. That's where our debt literally comes from. The majority of our debt, at least, comes from. And our credit rating being shitty as fuck comes from the fact that we have a fiat currency. That means that there's no real asset backing those dollars. Those dollars are meant to represent the trading and bartering system where there's actual assets being passed across back and forth. Back in the day, you used to be able to go trade your dollar for its worth in gold from the bank because it needs something behind it to make it worth something itself. Without that, it's just worthless paper, and the only thing that gives it its power is the illusion you behold in your mind that it is worth something. It is not worth shit. So, time for me to take a drink of coffee. Been professing passionately about the election and all that. Basically, I think that voting into a broken system isn't going to work. If you take a piss into a toilet that has a crack in it, all your piss is going to run right out. It's not going to go where it's supposed to go. And that's where your votes are going. Right down that fucking crack in the toilet. That's where your vote's going, man. It don't mean shit. Even in a direct democracy, it would be 51% of the people telling the other 49% of the people what to do there. I don't have all the answers. All I know is that I was put here to help people wake up to the fact that we need to start making some fucking answers. We need to start, that sounded fucking really smart, making some fucking answers. We need to start figuring this shit out. Like, we don't think about it, we can't figure it out. And it's going to take a group of people to think of another type of living than we've already figured out. Like, all of these types of governments, like republics, democracies, communism, I feel like they must have all been created by people with almost the same thought, just slightly different variations of the same thought processes, because they all lead to the same thing, to the majority of the people being taken advantage of by the small other percentage of the people, you know? I do know that our world is fucked up and that we need to start thinking about it, and that we need to start teaching our kids that they need to start thinking about it. That way we can come up with something different. We can get the powers that be. We can turn the tables here, and we can make this existence livable for everybody comfortably. Some people live in mansions. Other people are literally living under a fucking bridge, man. And the people that are living under the bridge, we just blame them, huh? Oh, look at that fucking piece of shit just sitting there, just not doing anything, man. He can go fucking get a job. Listen, employment, relationships, that shouldn't be the only successful way we figured out how to live this life. These people who can't just fall inside that track like you do, there's a reason for that. They weren't built for that. Human beings, you weren't just meant to sit in a fucking cubicle 45 hours a week and copy and paste over the same fucking typed response over and over again. You weren't meant to say hello to 5,000 people a week working at a fucking grocery store and trying to remember everybody's fucking name that you can't remember. You wish you could remember everybody. You weren't meant to just do. Your soul wants to have experiences. There should be a multitude of successful ways that the average person could live their life on this earth. And until we start thinking of ways to get out of the master slave relationship, which is employer employment, to ploy you, to work for them, to get fucked over for pennies for them, to forget who you are, your own identity for them. Come on. Wake up. I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers. But unless we start thinking in depth about this for a couple of generations, for generations to come, teaching the kids that this world needs to change, that we're not on the right track, that we're confused, that we're sick, that we're diseased, it's never going to change if we don't start thinking about it. Anyways, so voting into a broken system is bullshit. Your vote is being overridden by the Electoral College anyways. Even if it was a direct vote, you still 49% of the people in this country wouldn't be happy with, basically. I feel like it's mob rule that way. We need to come up with a new way. It would be closer though. At least direct, it would be a little bit closer, I suppose. Like the ideal of it feels good. I know in reality it would never work out the way the ideal of it feels, but the ideal just one time for people's vote, for them to actually feel like they mattered in the world, like the idea of that fairy tale feels good in my heart, even though I know it's not a reality. But so I think that overall that we're being played on multiple levels with this election, that the character traits that are making you feel sick over these candidates are being put out there on purpose for a reason. Our country has an ability to, and always has had an ability to, have the upper hand with intelligence and with keeping our information safe. When it comes to that, I just feel like there must be a reason why this information about her is coming out now. And another thing about it is that people are very uncomfortable with invasion of privacy and with the NSA viewing their information. This could be a way to get people to feel more comfortable with them looking at our information in order to find horrible things about people who are doing horrible things. It could be a way to desensitize you, to make you feel more comfortable with them snooping on everybody's information. You don't hear anybody sticking up for Hillary's right for her privacy, do you? No, you don't hear anybody. And she's a piece of shit, especially, I'm not saying, if she is truly involved with child pedophilia rings, that right there makes her a straight piece of shit. Like these people that are purchasing children in third world countries and bringing them back and putting them in their sex dungeons, and that guy that has Orgy Island, that has the Lolita Express and all of those things, those are the most horrific crimes that imaginable. All right, think of 10 times worse than anything you've ever seen on Law and Order SVU. That's probably that guy's fucking island. I mean, it's fucking horrible if that's true. And that's worse than Trump saying he wants to build a wall, by the way. All right? All you people still saying, all you fucking Bernie supporters that swallowed it took a long time to swallow the fact that he got fucked and that you're going to have to vote, or that you feel that you're going to have to vote for Hillary now. Pedophilia, if Bill and herself were involved with helping bring sex slaves into this country or molesting kids themselves, that trumps, excuse the pun there, that trumps supposed racism that you guys all of a sudden say he's racist, even though he had to build up relationships in all neighborhoods in order to become successful in real estate and the businesses that he was successful in. If I had to choose between hanging out with a racist and a pedophile, I'm hanging out with the racist and trying to make them see that they shouldn't be racist 100% of the time before I'm hanging out with the fucking pedophile. All right. Let's just say that. Man, did you guys see the weird fucking roast that they did after the last debate? The weird Richie Rich dinner in New York roast they did with Trump and Hillary? Henry Kissinger in the crowd and a bunch of sweaty old fucking greased fucking up looking fucking white dudes in creepy fucking occult looking suits with pendants dangling from their pockets and all this weird shit. Like, the people who run, like, truly, like, the people who have influence in this country, they're up to some weird shit, like Bohemian Grove type shit. And anyway, so just pandering to the game again. If you know, if that were the reality that one of these two are really going to run the country, even though I know that's not a reality, if I had to choose between a pedophile and a racist, I would choose a racist. Sorry if that sounds fucked up. All you fucking justice warriors out there saying that I shouldn't be saying that I would hang out with either of them. Like, basically, that's what you're saying anyways, man. You guys are all saying, like, this is the brainwash mantra, right? That you have to choose the lesser. I've been hearing this since I was a little kid. Well, you just got to choose the lesser of two evils. Fuck you. It's all... If there's no one that you truly believe that can change the country or that can lead us, like, truthfully, you shouldn't be fucking voting. You shouldn't be putting your vote into something, into that energy. That energy is not getting you anywhere. It's hurting you. So you're putting your energy into something that you know is going to end up hurting you in the long run just for some short-term security, thinking that they're a little less dangerous than the person next to them. So it's just fucking craziness. All right, so that's enough of the presidential talk for today. All you people who are going to vote out there and really believe your vote matters, may the force be with you. I hope magically that if, you know, for once in the history of voting, it does matter. Probably won't, but more power to you. All right, so yesterday I told you guys I liked, you know, watching some UFC, watching some MMA from time to time. I'm actually quite a bit into the MMA scene, probably more than my girlfriend would like me to be. Still pay plenty of attention to her, but I love watching some fights. I always have since I was a kid. Me and my dad used to watch them when I was a kid. We used to watch boxing back in the day. Remember watching like Lennox Lewis versus Michael Moore, like the Tyson Holyfield fight, stuff like that. So I'm just always gonna like. It's contradictory to most of my other beliefs in the world, like being against like conflict. You know, even though we're all hypocrites, we all have our own problems in our life. Being against conflict and stuff like that. Just something about watching combat sports that I love: boxing, MMA, Muay Thai. Not like point stuff like point karate or boxers that are point fighters like Oscar De La Hoya. But you know, I just, you know, there's something I get a rush from watching it, you know, and I've been in a few fights myself in my life, and I guess I could just, I've never been in a professional one, but I guess I could just understand, like, you know, defending yourself and wanting to prove yourself and things like that. Like, you know, just, it is what it is. You know, I'm a man, and as a man, sometimes we like to watch another couple of men duke it out sometimes. So last Saturday was UFC Fight Night 98. Rafael Dos Anjos versus Tony Ferguson in the headliner, and that's the fight we're going to talk about here. Fucking awesome fight. 5 rounds, went the full 5 rounds. Tony Ferguson took it with a decision. Both guys had their moments in the fight. Tony Ferguson was in the fucking zone. He was like, his footwork, like he was just grooving, almost like he was like listening to a beat in his head. And it was a beat that, you know, eventually Rafael Dos Anjos couldn't, you know, tune into. So Tony Ferguson ended up having, you know, just a few more moments than Dos Anjos did. So he took the fight, you know, on that. He took the win on that one. But Tony Ferguson was, you know, some of them were sloppy stuff, but like spinning techniques and just like, man, he was just rolling his shoulders and head movement, and just like his boxing was crisp. And he had a hard time at first checking the leg kicks of Rafael Dos Anjos. Dos Anjos is known to take advantage of boxing heavy fighters with his leg kicks, because boxers traditionally plant down pretty hard on their front foot to sit down on their punches. So in the first round, Dos Anjos was blasting him with something like, whew, you wouldn't want to be behind or be what's being impacted by those kicks. But Ferguson's a fucking savage. Later on in the fight, Ferguson was throwing leg kicks himself. He was throwing like the inside leg kick to where his shin was cracking the shin of Dos Anjos, like to where it hurts both guys. Like Ferguson's pain threshold, like man, it's through the roof. Like he's one tough son of a bitch. So it was a great fight. If you guys have an ability to see that, they probably have it on reruns or something like on Fox Sports 1 or something like that, or you may be able to get it somewhere else through the interwebs and watch that one. But next Saturday, or this Saturday, not next Saturday anymore, this Saturday, UFC 205, Conor McGregor will fight Eddie Alvarez. Eddie Alvarez will be defending his lightweight championship belt. And it's going to be a good one. Also on that card, the co-main event, I believe, is Tyron Woodley defending his welterweight belt against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Stephen Thompson, been fighting kickboxing and karate since he was a little kid, multiple-time champion. I think undefeated in professional kickboxing, if I remember correctly. Maybe he lost once, but he is a wizard on the feet with range and with kicking, things like that. Woodley has deadly power through his fists. Deadly power. He knocked Robbie Lawler, who is a straight savage himself, dead. Knocked him cold in the first round. Like bam, just with that overhand. Wow, just Robbie Lawler was basically just out of it after that point. But so that's what Tyron Woodley brings to the cages. He brings that power, and he brings his basically world-class wrestling game. I mean, with his technique and his physical strength and speed and agility and everything, like his wrestling game's pretty on par. So Stephen Thompson's not known for being a grappler. He's a striker first, so it's a pretty like traditional matchup. Like nowadays everybody's well-rounded, but there's still most guys still, they have a base where they're just a little bit more comfortable there. So it still is a grappler in Woodley versus a striker in Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and that's going to be real interesting because Woodley, he can knock guys out. He likes to stand. And then Thompson, even though he's not a grappler, he proved that he could keep it on the feet against Hendricks. Hendricks, former champion, Oklahoma State wrestler. If you don't know what that means he's a bad motherfucker on the wrestling mats. And Johnny Hendricks couldn't take him down, and Stephen Thompson ended up getting his range and picking him apart, and Hendricks looked bewildered. So I'm thinking maybe Thompson might be able to do the same thing to Woodley because Woodley's kind of like the same prototype as Hendricks. I believe, basically almost the same thing, like except for Woodley's more powerful than Hendricks. Hendricks had the knockout left hand as well, or he had the knockout left hand. He had that real strong left hand shot. But Woodley's like just on another level with his power than I believe. You can knock someone out, but then you can knock someone out like Tyron Woodley at welterweight or like Anthony Rumble Johnson at light heavyweight, to where it's like on a whole nother level. Like Dan Henderson, there's a few guys like Hendricks isn't quite on that level, even though he's kind of like a knockout artist. So I think that Thompson will be able to do the same thing that he did to Hendricks, possibly to Woodley, but maybe not, because Woodley, like I said, just has another level that Hendricks didn't have. And then another title fight, a third title fight. This card, they pulled out all the stops because this is the first card at Madison Square Garden. And it took a long time for the UFC to get to to be able to hold a card there, because MMA was illegal in New York for such a long time. MMA just barely became legal in New York. So this is the first major card there. The first card from the UFC there. I'm not sure if any smaller promotions have started up or had any cards in the state of New York yet, but yeah, it's going to be freaking awesome. So the third title fight is Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus, and I'm going to mess her last name up, but Karolina Kowalkiewicz or Kowalkiewicz, something like that. And they're both Polish fighters. JJ, one of the most technically sound, crisp fighters on the planet. Just a little girl. If you saw her on the streets and you tried to talk shit to her, you probably think you'd be able to get away with it, and you probably fucking be waking up with your fucking teeth knocked out on the ground somewhere. So she's a little savage. So she's the women's 115-pound champion. JJ is, and she's actually quite familiar with. We're going to call Karolina KK. We're JJ and KK here. So JJ is quite familiar with KK because they're both Polish fighters. There's, the Polish fighting scene's only so big. And then they fought each other as amateurs, and JJ beat KK. So things change. Fighters improve. But I would say that if I had to guess, Joanna Jędrzejczyk's career progression was probably pretty steep, in incline. So even if Karolina improved at the same rate as JJ was already a little bit better than her. JJ was good enough to be the dominant women's champion that she is. Karolina, in the time that from the last time they fought, would have to be that and more as far as her progression goes. And so I just don't know if that's true. So I think JJ is going to take that. So yeah, for the main event though, Conor and Eddie Alvarez. Conor, you don't want to believe that he's legit. You still want to believe that he's being put in great spots and that he's not that great. And Eddie Alvarez wants to believe that Nate Diaz was built up to be something he wasn't, and that he's just an average fighter, and that's not true. Nate Diaz is an above average fighter for sure. Maybe not as great as, what maybe a lot of the people who didn't know who he was before the Conor McGregor fights think of him now. But, yeah, I think that Conor is very skilled. I mean, ask Cub Swanson if he thinks he could knock out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds, or Chad Mendes, or the Korean Zombie, or Ricardo Lamas, or the list goes on and on. Mike Brown, Uriah Faber. Ask Uriah Faber's leg if it thinks that it wants to stand in front of Jose Aldo again. And Conor McGregor knocked him out in 13 seconds. The conspiracy theorist in me wanted to think, oh, maybe Aldo got paid to go down. No, he got knocked the fuck out. He got knocked out harder than Dustin Poirier or Chad Mendes got knocked out in my opinion. Chad Mendes kind of just wilted after being pretty dominant against Conor there for a while. But, styles make fights, and maybe Nate was just the wrong style for Conor. But Nate doesn't have the wrestling that Eddie has, which is concerning. If Eddie can take Conor down and then not gas like Chad Mendes gassed, because Chad Mendes was able to take Conor down with his wrestling game and his wrestling pedigree. But then he gassed after a couple of rounds, short. Call it what you want, Maybe he just gassed because of the spotlight, or maybe he gassed because he took the fight on just a couple weeks or a week and a half notice, something like that. But Chad Mendes showed that Conor does have a weakness. Let's see if Eddie can expose it. But Conor he shatters people's expectations. You don't think he could do it, then he does it, And I can understand that. And I can, even though I don't like a lot of the shit he says, and I definitely was going for Nate because Nate's from the Central California. That's where I'm from. That might sound shallow or whatever, but not a lot of people from the Central Valley, from the San Joaquin Valley in California get a lot of credit. It's hard fucking work. Even if, you're not working a 9-to-5 in Central California, if you're surviving there, you're doing fucking hard work. And so that's why I was behind Nate in those fights, because he does hard fucking work to survive in Stockton, California. Let me tell you something. If you ride the Amtrak through Stockton either way, they don't open the doors to let you outside to go have a smoke break or to go get some fresh air. They open one door and they tell you, if you're getting out, get out. And they let the people in who are getting in, and that's it. That's a tough fucking town, and that kid's one of the most successful people in that town, and coming from the background he did, he should be fucking proud of himself. But anyways, Nate wasn't able to expose Conor's ground inefficiency in the second fight as much. He took him down barely at the end of the fight in the 5th round. In the first fight, of course, we saw it happen. But if Eddie gets Conor down repeatedly, it might be all bad for Conor. But if Conor can keep it standing, and if he can keep his movement there and his footwork there, and he can keep his distance and not let Eddie smother him and land his shots, it could look like another Conor versus Nate too. And Conor, I think, will probably win by decision. If not, I think if Eddie can take him down and get him there a couple of times, I think Eddie might be able to win by submission. If he wins by ground and pound, whew, damn, because Conor really hasn't been tagged that much. Like, if someone really puts like some shots on Conor on the ground, like where his head doesn't have anywhere to go, or it's just against the mat, like he may not have that many more wars left in him, you know. But you never know, because speaking of that, Diego Sanchez fought on this card last Saturday. He fought Marcin Held, who is a grappling expert, who's very accomplished in the submission game, and who is a leg lock specialist. It was his first UFC fight, and he was the betting favorite against Diego Sanchez. If you guys don't know who Diego Nightmare Sanchez is, he's a 25-fight UFC veteran. He won, one of the weight classes in the very first Ultimate Fighter reality show seasons there. He won the very first season in his weight class. So he's been fighting in the UFC for 11 years, and he's ridiculously experienced. People were underestimating him because of his vast experience. They think that the miles that he has on his body might just, be a little bit too much, and that he might be chinny and things like that. He might be easily knocked out. But he just proved everybody wrong. Like, just because you got knocked out in one fight doesn't mean you're going to get knocked out in every fight. And the grappling exchanges in that fight, woo, they were rolling. They were rolling, man. You guys need to go back and watch that one too. That was a good fight. Diego won by decision. It was a good fight though. Diego has the heart of a fucking warrior. And congratulations to him and his win last Saturday. So it's been a pretty good morning. This coffee's almost gone. I don't know how, since I've been talking so much, but my bowl's almost gone. What I'm doing today, we're doing this. This is almost over. From here, I'm going to go produce an episode of Fight Shark. We're going to get some new street fights out on our YouTube channel for you guys today. And then I'm going to continue working on the very first episode of Then and Now. The very first episode, we're going big. We're doing the kids from Stand By Me. So that's what we're doing. So you guys probably already know where all they're at. It's not too much of a surprise, but it's the first episode, and I just want to get a good one under my belt. And then I want to do, supporting actors and actresses that you may not, think about when you think of actors or actresses, but when you see the movie, you know who they are, and maybe they haven't been in a movie for a while or in a show for a while. That's what I want to do with that show, So, we'll do people who are very well known, and then we'll do people who are a little bit more obscure. So, that's going to be fun. And so I'm working on those two projects today. That'll fill up quite a bit of time because gathering material, fixing the kinks in my writing, editing, a lot of that stuff. Going grocery shopping today. I'm going to go get some food to make some good food for the peeps. I love cooking. Pretty good in the kitchen. Don't mean to sound that way, but I do pretty well. People who knew me when I was young probably wouldn't think that I would have that aptitude that I have in the kitchen, but I just continued to try. I never fucking gave up. I'm a big boy. I always told my grandma I like to cook. She always told me, no, you like to eat, and that's true. I like to cook and I like to eat. Probably more cooking for other people and less eating myself would be better. Working on that one thing at a time. So any of you guys who are still possibly listening, maybe I've entertained your brains enough to hold your attention span for an hour. If you guys want to go and subscribe to Fight Shark, subscribe to Critically Creative Entertainment. That's CR2 for short. Subscribe to this channel, which and to Fight Shark. And then I'm going to have some content. I'm going to have that first episode of Then and Now up within the next couple of days. You guys go subscribe to that channel. And I'm going to continue building out my library of content for you guys, building more channels, and trying to build my own independent media outlet, my own way. Nobody else's way but my own way, because that's what I was meant to do in the world. And that's what you guys should be doing in the world as well. If your boss tells you to do something today that makes you feel uncomfortable, makes you feel unsafe, tell your boss in a nice way to fuck himself and that you're not going to do it. Sorry, but you're worth more than what your boss thinks you're worth. Okay? Trust me. No company is ever going to value you like you value you. Okay? And if you don't value you, and if you find your value in your company, that means that most likely your identity has been lost in that company, and you are now probably just channeling that company through you like some sort of weird fucking possession. All right? If you're that person that tells your boss everything your coworkers say when your coworkers aren't around your boss, you're a fucking asshole, you're traitorous, and you're brainwashed. Be the leader of your own lives. Don't be afraid to take the world by the horns and live it your way. Don't be afraid to tell your boss what you need to. If you have one, if you're your own boss, congratulations. Keep working hard. Take care of your families. Show love. Love the people around you. Don't hurt the people around you. I'm going to try to do that as well as myself. We're all a work in progress as well as I am. I'm just an asshole sometimes, that's it. I could just be a real asshole sometimes. So I'm working on that. You guys work on yourselves. Hang in there. You guys have a wonderful day. It's been wonderful hanging out with you guys. And welcome to Critically Creative Entertainment. I don't know. You guys have a good day. Bye.